But first, now later in the show I'm going to talk about the politics around the death of Labor Senator Kimberley Kitching, a friend of mine who died of a suspected heart attack a week ago, after telling friends like me of the stress that she was under from bullying by people in her own party. Excuse me, alleged bullying, but I know who I believe. Because 3 of the women she named, the mean girls, well, they denied ever happened, and I guess Kimberley must have just made it all up. I won't get into that here, that's for later. Because I'm just back, literally 5 minutes ago, from Kimberley's funeral at St Patrick's Cathedral in Melbourne. Now, Kimberley was a Catholic, which was one of the things that made her so fully a civilised woman, a champion of human rights, a foe of communist China. I mean, someone who understood the profound difference between good and evil and freedom and tyranny. So, you know, being in a rush to get home, traffic jams and all that, it's been a bit of a blur trying to prepare the show, but you know, also spending time with friends and Kimberley's husband to pay tribute to this wonderful woman. So loved by people on both sides of politics. It was just, I needed to do it. And, well, you should have seen the people that were there. I mean, there was obviously Labor royalty, former Labor leader Bill Shorten, federal Labor leader, Premier Daniel Andrews, you had Richard Marles, you had Anthony Albanese, the new Labor leader, you had all sorts of people there. You had CFM, the CFMEU boss was there, union leaders, Diane Asmar, very, very close friend. And of course you had a lot of people from the Liberals and Nationals. You had the Deputy Prime Minister, for example, Nationals leader Barnaby Joyce. You had Ministers Peter Dutton, Michaelia Cash. You had so many more as well. I mean, I couldn't believe how many Liberals had come down. Andrew Hastie, you know, lots. Tim Wilson. I won't go through all of this because I'll offend all the other people that were there. James Patterson. And I haven't got you a scripted sort of response for all that. I'm just going to tell you some impressions. Because it really struck me very hard. Among the audience, I should tell you, of course, were the so-called mean girls. That was Kimberley's name for them, that she said bullied them. They deny it. Penny Wong, Katie Gallagher, Christina Keneally. So they took guts for them to sit there. And it would have been very uncomfortable for them. They didn't sit together. I thought that was a smart move too. Because Kimberley's husband, Andrew Landieu, another friend of mine, gave one of the most brilliant talks that I've ever seen at a funeral. It was just wonderful. It was honest. It told their love story together, what he saw in her, what she saw in him, their arguments. They've gone through some ups and they've gone through some downs. And Andrew blamed himself for a few things, but it was wonderful. But he paid such tribute to one of the women that I think has been one of the finest political talents to be in Parliament and to be spat out by Parliament, nearly. She was threatened with losing her seat after 6 years because some in Labor didn't like her. And Andrew didn't push that button. He had the so-called mean girls. He had Anthony Albanese there. He had someone else, lots of fingers being pointed at, the Deputy Leader, Richard Marles, all sitting there. He didn't. He's got class, but he's also honest. All he would say was that there is a cantankerous cabal that really went for her. And she deserved so much better. And boy, did she. I mean, leaving the funeral, I talked to another friend of mine, a Liberal, who picked up, or Kimberley had given a lift to, 3 or 4 weeks before she died. Said, how are you going? You look terrible. Kimberley cried. And this friend of ours took her inside and she poured her heart out about the bullying. Don't tell me there was no bullying. Don't tell me at all. I saw her 6 days before her death. Don't tell me there was no bullying. Now, people say, this is the other thing from the funeral. People say, well, if she liked Andrew Bolt, she wasn't a real Labor person. They say, you go up on Twitter, look it up. They say, oh, well, you know, if One Nation leader Pauline Hanson, if she cried, and she did, when Kimberley died, they used to have tea together. But then she's not, you know, she didn't belong to Labor. She's just really conservative, one of those cuckoos, kick her out. And really, that seemed to be the theme of a few people in the modern left of Labor. They are the ones that really made life hard for her. And I say to you, the answer isn't just what Bill Shorten said at the funeral, that she was Labor through and through. We had arguments, Kimberley and I, about Labor stuff, but normally she would look to me, you know, we would focus on what united us. This is the key, what united us. You had a look in the audience today, in the congregation, Catholic ceremony. Right in front of me was an Afghan woman, Muslim, headscarf. The headscarf, by the way, was coloured yellow in honour of Kimberley, because Kimberley had once got a request from someone here, an VC student. My brother's fiancée is still stuck in Afghanistan. That's when the Taliban took over, right? Can't get out, can't get through the airport. Soldiers around, crowds, can't get out. We're desperate, can you help? She arranged for the visa, and she arranged for the woman to send a photograph of herself with a yellow scarf on. And she sent that photograph to an Australian private on the perimeter and said, if you see this girl, let her in. He saw her, she was in, made it to safety, sat right in front of me with a yellow scarf. You had Muslims from Afghanistan she'd helped. You had Uyghurs from China that you'd helped. They were right the other side. You had people from all walks of life. You had all kinds of people. Buddhists, atheists, agnostics, whatever, it didn't matter. She'd helped them. And the thing here, and the reason that people like me were sitting there too, is what you don't see in politics, what you don't see in Twitter, you don't see enough in politics, is that she could look beyond the differences to focus on what united us, and it didn't matter who you were. If you're Pauline Hanson, fine. If you were focused on what she was focused on, and you could together do something for this country, she'd be your friend too. I find it amazing that someone you probably never heard of before, unless you watched this show because she was a regular guest for a while, how she could almost fill St Patrick's Cathedral in Melbourne to overflowing. Why would that be? If you hadn't heard of her, if she was getting demoted, she was getting told, you've lost your seat. Next election, you're out. Labor has no time for you anymore. Andrew Landier, her husband, he spoke so beautifully. This is his reference to it. Have a listen.
The simple truth of it is that Kimberley's political and moral judgment was vastly superior to the small number who opposed her internally. And of course, there's a lot I could say about the unpleasantness of a cantankerous cabal, not all of them in Parliament, that was aimed at Kimber. And the intensity of it did baffle and hurt her. But I hope it's sufficient to say she deserves so very much better. Her capacity to impress and work with and win over Labor's foes on the crossbench, on the Conservative side, was stunning. It's called leadership.
I'm really going to miss Kimberley, but that's for reasons that probably no interest to you. I like talking literature with her. I like talking philosophy. She was a rounded woman. I like talking political principles. But this is a woman who believed in freedom. And in the cause of freedom, she was everyone's friend, if she could advance freedom. And she was particularly concerned before her death about what was happening in Ukraine. And we'll talk about that next. After this, one last thing. Kimberley, I'll miss you, but Australia will miss you.